Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel, to this series of videos where we try to discuss various things that we have to care about in our lives, various problems that we have, and so on and so forth. Today I want to talk a little bit about self-confidence and the act of doing things. I have to admit I won't have so much to speak about, but it's a subject that from time to time gets me irritated. Perhaps I shouldn't say the subject itself gets me irritated, because I don't have a problem neither with the self-confidence nor with the act of doing things. What irritates me are, to a certain degree, are the kind of people that have a very, how should I put it? It's a very false view, a very distorted view of self-confidence. And they typically think that self-confidence is something that you are born with, or it's something that you are lucky to have, and perhaps they are not so lucky to have. And I find this quite irritating because, well, it's completely wrong, and that's not a problem in itself, but their view of this aspect basically is very disrespectful towards people like me, who have plenty of self-confidence and who don't have a problem relying on themselves. It's somewhat disrespectful simply because by thinking that someone has self-confidence because he was lucky enough to have it, because he was born with it, or I don't know what other crap you might be thinking, you are basically saying that, you're basically completely ignoring all the efforts that that person has put into his life. Efforts that obviously you didn't, if you're that kind of person that, feels like he likes, if you're that kind of person that feels that he lacks self-confidence or has a problem relying on himself more than on the others, you most likely didn't put the amount of effort into your life as much as the other person that you're looking at that has self-confidence and that you think he's just a lucky bastard. And this is what I find it, maybe I shouldn't say irritating as much as disgusting. I hate it when people like that, don't appreciate someone else's efforts, don't appreciate the work that other people do and are doing, both on themselves and on others, on the work that they're putting into a project or whatever might be the case, So I want to talk a little bit about that, just so that things are clear, just so that in case you are part of the first category of people, you might want to rethink this topic, And let's start a bit by giving a definition so that we are on the same wavelength and we refer to the same thing, because otherwise it wouldn't be so useful to you. So for me, and I'm not going to give you a formal definition or a dictionary definition or something like that. No, it's an academic definition. I don't care about that. I'm going to give you my personal definition and how I view things, and you will understand. So for me, self-confidence is the state of being in which you know what you know and what you don't know. You know what you're capable of and what you're not capable of. You know what you excel at. You know what problems you can solve or what problems are completely impossible for you. And on top of all of these, not only that you know all of these aspects, but you are also acting in your life in accordance with all of this knowledge. Okay? If we are to basically simplify this even more, we could say that self-confidence is the ability to rely on yourself a lot more than you can rely on others. And at the same time, the act of relying on yourself more often than you rely on others. If we think about it for a moment, we see that basically self-confidence can be put on the same axis with the idea of need, but they would find themselves at opposite ends of this axis. You know, think like in mathematics, where you have an axis of numbers. There's a point on that axis that is 0, and typically to the left of that point we visualize negative numbers. To the right of that point we visualize positive numbers, right? Well, you can put self-confidence and being needy in general on such an axis, and you can see them as kind of opposites. Okay, the more self-confidence you gain, and therefore the more you can rely on yourself, the more you are able to solve your problems and provide more for yourself. I'm not talking strictly material things, I'm talking in general. Okay, we're having a more higher level discussion right now. Okay, so the more the more self-confidence you have, the more you can rely on yourself, the more you can solve your problems, or more of your problems, the more you can provide for yourself, and therefore the less you need others to do things for you. Okay? And self-confidence is, well, I guess you have realized by now that self-confidence is not a binary thing. It actually comes on a spectrum of values. Okay, you can have very little self-confidence, a little bit more. You can have, I don't know, the self-confidence of the average person in society, we could say, or you can have quite a lot of self-confidence, etc., etc. So there are different values of self-confidence that each person has, and I'm not gonna go into the details because I don't really care about it, at least not in this video, but self-confidence can also be broken down based on specific contexts. Okay, so you could say that you are very confident at cooking, but you're not so confident at I don't know, fixing plumbing or stuff like that. I'm just giving some random examples. Might not be the best ones. But anyway, what I'm talking about here is the overall self-confidence. Okay, that's much more important, and that's the one that actually influences all the other aspects of your life. So it's important to understand that nobody was born confident. Nobody, right? We all are born pretty much empty. Sure, some of us have more intelligence than others, some of us have more guts than others, some of us have more I don't know how to say it. Some of us are bolder than others, okay? Not bolder instead of, in the sense of not having enough hair, but in the sense of being bold and daring to do certain things, you know, a lot easier than others. But fundamentally speaking, we weren't really born confident, because we weren't really born knowing anything, if you think about it. Okay, we need to learn everything from the moment we are born. We need to learn how to walk on two legs. We need to learn how to speak. We need to learn how to, even how to hear and how to see. You know, a little baby does not know initially what he's seeing and what is the image in front of his eyes. He needs to start to be able to distinguish objects and so on and so forth. So nobody was born confident from the simple fact that nobody was born taught something, okay? Nobody was born knowing something. So self-confidence is definitely something you gain, you develop. It's not something you are born into. It's not something you are lucky, like a player that, like a person that plays at the lottery and at some point in time happens to, you know, actually win at that lottery. No. That doesn't happen with self-confidence. There's only one way to develop your own self-confidence. And yes, you have to develop it. It's a process, okay? It's not an act of doing something and magically obtaining self-confidence. It's more like a byproduct, actually, okay? And funny thing is, typically you're not really focusing on obtaining self-confidence. You're focusing on all sorts of other things. And as you start having achievements, those achievements will also help you gain self-confidence. Okay? So now, before I explain a little bit more, please bear in mind that sadly there's also a confidence that the ignorant has, but that's a false confidence. Okay, because an ignorant, a person that knows very little, but he's by his ignorance, you know, he's so sure that he knows and he understands, in reality does not have self-confidence. It's just his stupidity that gives him a false sense of confidence. The idea is that if you take a person, such a person, and you throw him into a real problem that he thinks he's confident that he will be able to solve it, 99% of the times he will fail, because his confidence is actually not a result of his work. It's just a result of ignorance. I don't know, some of you might fancy calling this the dark side of confidence. If you like it, you can use this expression. I prefer referring to it as false confidence. Okay, not as a dark side of confidence or whatever. Not that is wrong, but anyway, I'm just saying. So you need to be careful about you not being an ignorant, and that's where you would derive your confidence, because that's not confidence for real. Okay. Typically, if you are a modest person, you know, if you don't throw yourself at drawing rash conclusions, then you should be fine, okay? And you shouldn't fall into this trap of ending up being an ignorant and therefore being having false confidence because of this ignorance. So the idea is that the only way to develop self-confidence is through the act of doing things in order to gain knowledge, experience, expertise in some domain, and just in general become good at solving problems, creating solutions, and having achievements overall. Okay? And this is what made people like me have a lot of self-confidence. We didn't just win it at the lottery. We weren't lucky bastards and be born into it. No, really, we just worked. And we worked really hard for several years. Well, in my case, in the case of people exactly like me, not just several years, but pretty much our entire life, we were occupied with something or something else. And by doing it, by gaining experience and knowledge, we have in time gained more self-confidence and more self-confidence and more, and just the level of self-confidence has kept increasing. Okay, that's the only way. So if you want to be confident that you can solve, for example, technical problems, you need to start being interested in technical things. And the more things that you are interested or become interested, and the more that you do in those directions, the more experience that you gain, the more your self-confidence will increase. And the nice thing is that so I kind of try to give an example, but well, this is still kind of generic, a general discussion, you know. The nice thing is that at some point you get to a state in which even new problems that you have no idea about are not that big of a deal for you. Okay? After many years of going through this process of having a passion, diving deep into it, having another passion, diving deep into it, you know, being interested in all sorts of things, learning all sorts of new things, preferably practical things, not just theoretical. Okay, it's quite important for your interests to have an as high level of practicality as possible. At some point you will reach a state in which you'll overall be a lot calmer and a lot more relaxed, knowing that even if at some point you have a problem that you never had before, that you never dealt with before, not even indirectly by just asking someone else to solve it, you know that somehow that will get solved, because it's when you have, you know, thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of problems solved throughout your entire life. And it doesn't have to be a very long life, okay? You can still be young. So don't think that this process takes you your entire life and you will be self-confident only when you are old. No. It's like, let me give you an example. By the time I had 13 years of age, I was confident enough to go in one of my neighbor's house and install 4 lighting fixtures, I think you call them, you know, the ones that sit on the ceiling and have light bulbs and you turn on the light in that room, right? So I've installed 4 light fixtures without a problem when I was 13 years old. So just to give you a point of reference, right? And they functioned perfectly for 20 years. And 20 years later, that neighbor called me because she just wanted to redecorate the house. Not because they were not good anymore or because my job wasn't good enough to hold for more than 20 years. It was, but she just wanted to redecorate. So that's how I saw that those lighting fixtures were placed there by me 20 years earlier. You know, so you don't, self-confidence is not something that you have to work hard in order to gain in many years, and you just end up being old by the time you have self-confidence. No, self-confidence is something that you can have in a decent amount even as a very young person. And it's something that you can have in quite large amounts, even as a relatively young person or somewhere around middle age or before middle age. You know, I'm very close to having 37 years now. I'm not very sure how I should call myself because I don't see myself young, technically speaking, but I'm not old and I'm not middle-aged either, so I'm kind of like in between. Anyway, yeah, so it's definitely something achievable, but some life choices are necessary. And yeah, I really say life choices because the way you spend your time in your life is important. Okay, the way you consume your energy is also important. If all of your life means only entertainment and nothing else, well, don't really expect to have self-confidence or to ever gain self-confidence. Gaining self-confidence requires quite a lot of work. And for that, you need to have willpower and perseverance. A good and relatively pleasant way of gaining self-confidence without actually thinking about it is to simply have passions and hobbies. Okay, activities that you want to do, not that you have to do, like your work, like your job, like your career, if you care about it. I don't care at all about career. For me, the idea of career is a huge bullshit. I'm not gonna go into it. Maybe I'll do someday a video about it, but that's just complete crap for me. But it is true that even if you don't really work exactly what you like, the workplace itself is able, in some cases, not in all cases, but in some cases, the work that you do at the workplace, you know, where you are hired, is able to develop you and therefore make you gain self-confidence. It's not completely excluded, but the best self-confidence is created as a byproduct of your hobbies that you're doing, your passions that you're following, your general activities from your life. Okay? And let me try to give you some examples. Yeah, granted, I'm not a very good guy at giving examples. Sometimes I kind of screw up and I kind of choose weird at best examples, but anyway, I'm doing my best. So, if you want to feel confident about your physical body, you obviously need to use it in a more elaborate way. Okay? So, it would be useful if you would be interested in something physical, like some sports that you could perhaps practice. Okay? Remember, it's not about looking at someone else, how he does it. It's about actually practicing it yourself. So don't sit on the living room couch in front of your TV and watch how other people are practicing sports. That's not gonna help you in itself. You need to, move your ass and actually do practice sports on your for yourself. And if you start being interested in sports and practicing it, by the very nature of doing that, you're basically forced to use your body, to move your body in various ways, and therefore you are forced to learn how your body reacts to your commands, how you can move and how you cannot move your body, what flexibility you have, what mobility you have, what strength you have. Of course, these are also things that you can improve, that you can train, but overall, by doing this, you will gain more self-confidence when it comes to something physical. Okay, because if you go to the gym and to the fitness gym and you start training with weights and you put on muscles on yourself, you will automatically gain strength, and therefore you will be able to lift heavier weights, not just in the gym, but in general in life. And therefore your self-confidence relative to performing physical activities will obviously grow. It's impossible not to grow. Okay, and once your self-confidence regarding this aspect grows, your overall self-confidence will also grow, obviously. Okay, if you start, for example, if you start being interested in seeing how you can potentially solve your own domestic problems at home, like, for example, I'm talking about occasional problems that can happen in any home, like perhaps you need to replace a light switch or a wall plug. Perhaps you need to replace a water faucet. Perhaps you need to perform some reparations to your plumbing, or perhaps you need to fix some furniture. Nothing fancy, nothing super high quality, but the more you start to learn how to do these sorts of things, the more your self-confidence regarding problems that can arise in your house will obviously grow. And again, the more your overall self-confidence will grow. So I could go on really forever, but I'm not. I could just come up with new examples and new examples and new examples, but I'm not, because I think you understand the point. Okay, you have to do things, you have to learn things, you have to develop yourself by the act of doing things in order to gain self-confidence. That's the only way, and that's the only thing that we did. When I say we, I mean people like me, in order to be very self-confident in the present moment. You do not gain self-confidence otherwise. The act of doing things, or at least trying to do things as best as you can, cannot be replaced by absolutely anything else. This is why some people don't manage to gain enough self-confidence, because since this is something that requires quite a lot of work, willpower, perseverance, dedication, desire to do something else, and generally speaking have an active life, many people are not really they're not really interested, and they are a bit too lazy, and they don't do it. you know. They prefer having smaller amounts of self-confidence, but in order to basically not put in the efforts, because yeah, it sucks putting in the efforts. You don't really feel good while you are putting efforts into anything. Okay, I personally don't feel good when I lift weights to grow my muscles. I feel good only afterwards, you know. I can't say that I feel so good when I have to study something new, when I have to search for a solution for a problem. Obviously, it doesn't feel good because it's work, it's effort. But, you know, without effort, nothing valuable can come. Nothing valuable can be obtained. There's also another aspect which I'm just gonna mention it right now, but I'm not gonna dive into it. Because I just don't know. I'm not that well experienced in that domain, and I don't care about it that much. It's something that has to do with psychology, and that is the fact that the more self-confidence you gain, and generally speaking, the more you develop yourself, the less you are entitled to complain and to act like a victim. And some people just love so much being victims and staying in a victim mentality, in a victim energy, that for them it doesn't seem to make sense to gain their self-confidence, you know. So there's that aspect as well. I'm also gonna mention something that is I hear it sometimes from some people. They think they are right, but they're not quite. You know, I hear this coming from some people that are very, very depressed and that want nothing, or at least so they say. And they say it as if it's a problem that has no solution. They cannot do anything about it. Well, the problem is, if you don't try to do things in order to see what you like, in order to see, you know, I'm talking about people that don't have passions and hobbies because, at least right now in the present moment, they don't know, or they say that they don't know what they like, what passion they could have, etc., etc. Well, the problem is, you need to start doing things, not for long. You know, do something 1 month or 2 months, see how it feels like. Do something else for another month or two as a hobby, as a passion, you know. See how that is. Do something else and something else and something else, and it's impossible at some point to not literally stumble on something that you actually do enjoy doing, you know. But if you don't do anything, obviously you won't figure out what you can potentially do, what you can potentially like, what could be a passion or at least a hobby for you. And obviously you will not gain self-confidence, and you will just stay in a vicious circle, you know. You're not doing anything because you don't know what to do, but you don't know what to do because you're not trying anything, at least, you know. So there's that as well. Okay, so I think I spoke enough. The next video is going to be about the so-called comfort zone. It's related in a way with this video, with the message that I was trying to deliver here, with the act of doing things. So it's somewhat connected, but I will speak different things and from a slightly different perspective so I'll leave it as a separate video. I might do a second video on this topic if I find something else, but I have something else to say. But for the moment, I think this is everything. Okay, so as a conclusion, self-confidence is not something that you're born into. It's not something that you win like at a lottery. You're not lucky to have it or unlucky not to have it. It's something that requires your work, and it's something that you don't really have to focus on it, but rather comes as a byproduct of doing other things, gaining experience and knowledge and informations. Okay? Thanks a lot for listening to me. Hit the like and subscribe if you want. I will be back with more topics and more videos of all sorts of things that I find interesting and important. So I'll catch up with you soon. Thanks a lot. Bye bye.